Plugged Inland represents KVCR's continuing interest in focusing on important issues in the inland area. Supported by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, we're looking into innovations and solutions in education as part of the American Graduate Let's Make It Happen. And you can help us make it happen. Call us anytime during the show at 866-367-5827. Or you can send questions or comments right from our website at pluggedinland.org. Or you can email us questions and comments to questions@pluggedinland.org. And you can tweet us at #KVCR. Welcome to Plugged Inland. I'm Roger Bowman. Tonight we're going to talk about your child's future, specifically their ability to make sound decisions and to prosper. As a society, we talk a lot about the need to teach science and math, but rarely do we hear the word economics. That's a word that makes us react emotionally, either because we perceive it as mathematically complex or because we might not trust those economic pundits' opinions. But economics forms the foundation of good decision-making in a free market society, and our kids have to learn the rules in order to succeed at the game.
It helps me out, like understanding the credit.
Assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity.
When it's good to buy a car, like the percentage, the APR and all that kind of stuff.
I plan to go into a two-year college and then later transfer to a university where I'll major in accounting.
I received a letter in the mail from FITM, so I'm finna look into that more. That's about clothes and all type of designs.
Education is important for not only economic success, but also education helps you build networks and friendships that allow you to move throughout society and move throughout institutions.
Somebody that finishes high school in their lifetime will earn about $400,000 more than a high school dropout. But somebody that gets a bachelor's degree that finishes college compared to that dropped out of high school earns about $1 million more in their lifetime. So it's a huge thing. That means they would have more money in retirement, they'd be able to do more things every day, and it's the trickle-down theory. If they're making more money, they're paying more tax, they're spending more money, which is creating more jobs, and so on and so on.
Tonight, we're privileged to have an award-winning economist who is also a professor at a local university. He's the executive director of the California Council on Economic Education and teaches at Cal State San Bernardino, having won the Teacher of the Year for Social and Behavioral Sciences in 2003. And in 2011, he received the Bessie B. Moore Award, and this year he was the recipient of the prestigious Hilda Tabo Award, the California Council's highest honor for contributor to social studies education. I'm pleased and proud to welcome Jim Charkins to our studio this evening. Thank you for joining us, Jim.
My pleasure, Roger.
$1 million? Really?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Possibly more. What we're saying is this. A student who drops out of high school is making the most important financial decision she or he will ever make with almost no information. They have no idea that the difference between the lifetime earnings of a high school dropout and a college graduate is $1 million. That's probably low.
Most of us aspire to be a millionaire, and you're saying that they're making the choice to not be a millionaire, albeit accumulated over a lifetime, but that's still $1 million in purchasing power.
The $1 million is not important. They're making the choice to be poor.
You mentioned the surest path to poverty
is to drop out of high school. I mean, there's no question about it. The statistics on the number of the percentage of high school dropouts who end up incarcerated, who end up on public assistance, who end up unemployed, are phenomenal. There's just no comparison. If we could show these kids the life they're picking, if we did that, there's a good chance they'd think twice about saying, you know, I don't think school's much fun anymore.
You wrote, and we showed in our video roll, I love this, and the adults haven't taught you the rules of the game.
We have let our kids down. There is no question about it. You know, you can talk to folks in the educational system, and every one of them will tell you, we have to teach our children the skills of the 21st century economy. There's no question about that. We do. And you know, if you've ever tried to use your flicker on the television, you know who to give it to, right? You give it to your 5-year-old, right? So we're sort of moving along in that direction in terms of teaching them the skills. Nowhere near where we have to be, but we're moving in that direction. But then do we tell them what that economy is going to look like? You would never take a star athlete who was a fantastic basketball player, could dribble, could pass, could shoot. All right? And you didn't teach them the rules of the game, but that's what we're doing.
So you're saying that whether we're teaching it or whether the kids are picking it up, they're learning how to use that iPad and they know how to use computers. They're becoming technologically sophisticated in teaching us old people. But when it comes to how a market system works and the impact of the choices they make, that's where we're falling down.
I wouldn't go as far as you went in terms of saying we are teaching those skills. We're not. They're picking up a lot of those skills, but if we don't do that more forcefully, and obviously that's not the topic of the conversation tonight, but if we don't teach those technological skills to the poor, the underrepresented, the other kids are going to get it, and we will create in this country a technological divide that'll bring us down as quick as you can think.
Now, you know, I wasn't going to mention this, but I'm going to plug you a little more. I mentioned the awards you've won. I omitted one, and that is you also won, I think in 2009, an award for distributed learning. Right. So when you're talking about technology, and we're digressing a little from economics, but you're talking about technology because you know from whence you speak.
No. Come on.
I was talking
I'm
to you.
too old to know from whence I speak
Nope, that's not
about
true.
technology.
I was talking to you about your skill with a computer, and generally, you're talking about the fact that we compete in a global economy. And if we compete in a global economy, then market forces and technology and the labor market and human capital kind of converge.
There's no question about it. And you know, I'm sure you feel very much like I feel. Yeah, I can, you know, I can plug in a flash drive and I can do that kind of stuff. But in terms of being on top of the game, not even close. When we see some of our young assistant professors, they really shame us. But we're off topic.
Well, a little. But we're talking about human capital and what people bring to the table to sell themselves ultimately, and the need for them to be aware of it. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in the second half, but there's so much that we need to be teaching at a younger age. You know, we told our audience throughout the plugs for this show this week that you would be just a little bit controversial because you would like to start teaching economics in kindergarten.
There's absolutely nothing controversial about that. Economics is the study of decision making. So what we would like is for kindergartners to understand that they make choices. Is that controversial?
Not at all, but of course I perceive economics, you know, having had a macro and microeconomics class in college, as very formula driven, very mathematically heavy, and of course I wouldn't expect my third grader, for instance, to be ready to comprehend that level of sophistication.
We can certainly use mathematics, we can certainly use graphs, but But in kindergarten through 12th grade economics education, the most important point is that in absolutely everything we teach, the children see themselves. And so we can't start off with graphs and math. We have to start off by saying, what's the most important resource this economy has, and then show them a mirror. They need to understand that they are the most important resource this economy has. They're the most powerful resource they have. And once they understand that, they can begin to understand the power and the potential they have in this economy. There's nothing mathematical about it. There's nothing abstract, and there's certainly nothing controversial.
So what are like some of the tools? I know you're going to show us a little more in the second half, but for instance, what's a tool that you use to teach in a lower grade level the concepts of economics?
Well, I mean, we can talk about children's literature. We can talk about puppets, toys, aprons. But let me just show you a couple of books that we do use to get across maybe the most important concept of all. And I hate it when you use big technical terms like human capital. So let me try and work with that a little bit.
I don't know where, Professor, I would have picked that up.
We really want children to understand that as the most important resource that they have and the most important resource that this economy has, they should understand that human capital is the combination of things they know, knowledge, things they can do, skills, experiences they've had. And you know, that's one of the places where elementary teachers are the best. They have teachers, I mean, they have students from all over the world, and they are so much better about helping to use those experiences, have the students talk about those experiences to teach the other students.
So tell us about the books. First, let's
get on with the books.
Yes, let's bring it up and
All
show
right.
our audience.
So let's talk about human capital. This is a book called A Day's Work. And the story is Abuelo comes from Grandpa. Comes from Mexico to help out Francisco's family because Dad has just died. In children's books, dads die a lot.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's a terrible thing. So anyway, they're sitting out trying to get a job, and a truck comes by. It's a gardening job, and Abuela doesn't speak English, but Francisco does, and he says, "Oh, we can do that. We can do gardening." So the landscaper says, "All right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to pull out all the weeds and leave the plants." And so they say, fine. So they pull out all the weeds and they leave the plants, except they don't. They've done just the opposite. The weeds are chickweed, you know, and they have nice flowers on them. So they left those. The plants were ice plants. And so they did it all wrong. So the guy comes back and he says, oh, you guys messed this up, you know, I don't know what I was thinking and all this kind of stuff. And so the grandfather says, all right, listen, tell him that if these plants will survive overnight, we'll come back. And we'll replant everything we pulled out and pull out all the things that we should have. And so the landscaper says, all right, and tell your grandfather that, you know, if you need the money tonight, I can do that. And the grandfather says, no, 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 we'll take the money when we're finished. So the next day when they finished, the landscaper says, you know, tell your grandfather that you two did a great job. And by the way, if he wants more than a day's work, I would be very interested in hiring him. And so Francisco says, well, you know, we don't know gardening. He says, gardening I can teach him. The important things that I'm looking for, he has.
And what do you take from that? What are those important things?
The important concept, obviously responsibility for your decisions, responsibility for your actions, honesty, a willingness to get the job done right, all the kinds of things that actually you've mentioned before, the soft skills. It's fine to say that students should learn the technological skills, and students certainly should learn to read and to write, but the soft skills, that's one of the most important parts of human capital, and a lot of our high school students don't know those skills, even though high school teachers, high schools throughout the state are doing everything they can to teach it to them.
Are they? I mean, that's the question.
Oh, they are. Oh, yes. You know, this slam on the educational system, that drives me crazy. I want the people who are slamming the educational system to go into a third grade classroom and stay there for a week, and then go into a vice principal's office and stay there for a week, and then come back and tell me that these educators aren't doing their jobs and aren't working hard. And
I'm going to challenge you a little. I'm going to take a nuanced view. Let's assume the teachers are doing fantastic. but they're teaching to a test. At least that's what a lot of them are saying they're now doing. Teacher accountability is requiring that they are teaching to the science and math that's going to be state tested. And these soft skills are not state tested, and there's no more time.
No, I don't disagree with that. But that's not, the teacher can't change those constraints. But within those constraints, our teachers are incredible. The creativity that they use, yeah, they have to teach to the test, but you know what, at the same time, they're teaching children.
I agree completely.
And by the way,
many teachers.
Up to 12th grade. You
Yes.
know, all these high school kids think they're pretty tough, but they're children. That's fact. Come on.
But they're making decisions while they're still children, according to your definition, that impact their entire lives.
Well,
and they
that's
don't
exactly
know the degree to which that's going to impact them, because, you know, we've talked about so many children think that they don't need to study Algebra 2. They're not going to use it in their lives, and more importantly, their money's just going to come to them. I mean, they're going to be the rap star, the basketball star. You mentioned that.
Yeah. I was walking down a street. I worked fairly fairly closely with the school that both my boys attended, and so I got to know the kids at that school. It was a small school, and so one afternoon I was walking down the street and I heard across the way, "Mr. Charkins, Mr. Charkins," and so I turned over and it's Steve. And Steve had just graduated from high school. And I said, "Steve, how you doing?" And he said, "Oh, Mr. Charkins, not so well, not so well." I said, "Well, what's the problem?" He said, "I didn't know you had to have skills to get a job." He said that.
Really?
Yes, really. And Steve did very well. He went on and got a PhD in philosophy.
So he did okay.
He did fine, but he didn't know. So, you know, this message is not getting across. I mean, students should know that by the 3rd grade.
How meaningful is statistics, though? You know, we talked about the fact, and give us an idea, a little flavor, if you would, of how many people and how do we know how many people are going to go on to be these basically lotto winners in some kind of a well-rewarded occupation like actor, singer, rap star, sports star?
Well, I mean, obviously, you know the answer to the question. It's an infinitesimal amount, percentage. But we always tell, you know, when we're working with teachers, we always say, don't ever try and discourage your students from those dreams, but tell them, always have a backup. You know, and you can give them the odds, but kids don't pay attention to that. The main message is always have a backup. It doesn't make any difference what you hope to be. You should always work for those dreams, but have some serviceable, marketable skills. And, you know, that's really the message that we use throughout kindergarten through 12th grade. Develop marketable skills.
Now, you're executive director of CCEE. Tell us what that organization is.
California Council on Economic Education is a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 1963 by the Chancellor of the California State University System. The current Chancellor of the California State University System sits on our board along with the Superintendent of Public Instruction, the President of the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank, and the Chairman and CEO of the California Business Roundtable. What we do is we work with teachers to help them integrate economics into their curriculum. And we're not asking them to do anything that the state is not suggesting they should do. Everything that we work with teachers to teach is in the California History Social Science Standards. We know because we wrote them.
I'm going to have you show me an example of that in a little bit here. For now, you brought up 2 books, and I want to get to the second one.
Okay. This is a great one. And teachers fight over what grade is going to use this book. It's called Uncle Jed's Barbershop. Uncle Jed is a barber, and he travels all over the county cutting hairs, and he has a dream to have a barbershop of his own. And so he saves his money, and he's close, and then his niece Norma Jean gets sick, needs an operation. Without thinking, without using the benefit cost analysis that we're going to talk about a little bit later, he just hands over the money, and Norma Jean gets her operation, and is successful and she lives a good, happy, healthy life. So he saves his money again. And he puts it in a bank as is what should be done.
Not J.P. Morgan, I hope. Kidding.
Yeah. So he saves again, keeps the money in a bank. The Depression hits. The banks fail. And so, you know, Norma Jean says to him, well, Uncle Jed, what are you going to do? And he says, well, I'm going to start saving again. And so he does, and at the age of 78, he gets his barber shop. There are two important economic concepts here. One is the concept that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Cost. Economists think of cost as the opportunity you gave up to get something. So it's so clear here. You know, he had his barbershop, he was in reach of his barbershop, and he gave it up for Norma Jean. Didn't think about it, didn't do any calculus, just said Norma Jean is sick. But the point is, when you use resources for one thing, you give up another opportunity. So it's, you know, it's straight economics. And
this is a more approachable way to teach at the grade school level the concepts of opportunity cost and economics.
Everybody loves to be read to.
Okay, Jim, I'm going to take a moment. We already have an email. Vicki, thank you for emailing. She writes, when I was in school, I took home economics, and I can set a beautiful table, but even now I have no clue how to buy a car. My child will be entering high school next year, and I can't see economics classes, and offered to educate him for the real world. What can I do?
Give me a call.
How would people get a hold of you?
They'd give me a call. Area code 909-537-5553.
I'll have you repeat that again in a little bit.
They can also go to our website. It's the California Council on Economic Education, so it's just ccee.org, charlie.org.
Easy enough.
Should be.
Indeed, I think Vicki's pointing out the fact that economic education is not part of most curriculums, and that's what you're trying to change.
Yeah, and you know, we've done that formally. As I mentioned, it's in the California History Social Science Standards, but as you mentioned, it's not tested. I mean, we can argue that it is in tests, but it's so minimal that if I'm a teacher and I'm concerned about those tests, I'm certainly not going to spend a lot of time on economics. And so formally it's there. Informally, what we've done is developed ways to teach what's now maybe the most important set of standards around, the Common Core standards, math and language arts. And so we found ways to attach these things to the Common Core standards so that, you know, clearly you're teaching literature when you're teaching either Uncle Jed or A Day's Work. When we talk about personal finance, which is equally important, that's in the math curriculum, for heaven's sakes, you know, and that's an easy match. So when we work with teachers, we show them how this all connects with the standards that are being tested. So we sneak it in.
Most people, when they hear that you want to teach economics at grade school or K-12 level, they think personal finance. They think balancing a checkbook. In fact, a little bit as Vicki did. And I understand that is part of it, but it's so much more, is it not? Yes,
we're 100% behind personal finance education. Our children have to know it. Some students don't even know that you have to pay interest on a credit card. I mean, it's phenomenal the things they don't know. So we would never play that down, and in fact, we think it's an equal partner with economics. But economics is the critical thinking that helps you make wise choices. So if you learn benefit cost analysis, then you can apply that benefit cost analysis to all of your financial decisions. Should you use a credit card to get a dress that you really wanted, or a bat that just looked like that was going to make you the greatest slugger in the world? Should you use a credit card for that? Well, we teach them when using credit cards is appropriate and when it's not. But the first thing is you have to learn analytical thinking, and that's what we teach.
You know, we started this discussion talking about the most important, impactful decision that a child's going to make is whether or not to drop out of high school. I said that 1 out of 4 kids drop out of high school, and you said the rate's oftentimes even higher.
You know, I don't think anybody knows what the rate is, and I mean that seriously. We have, the California Department of Education has made a concerted effort to find good numbers that let us know. But Roger, you know, if you look at the overall figures, you're going to get one number. If you look at the dropout rate for African American and Hispanic students in certain parts of the state, it's over 50%. We are throwing away half of our children.
That's incredible. You know, let's see another little video segment. As we've discussed tonight, to understand economics is to understand how to prosper in our capitalist economy. Employers are increasingly shocked, as Jim mentioned, at how many unprepared teens there are that are trying to compete in this free market society. We can do a better job at helping them understand market forces, and we must do a better job.
Going to college, getting my business degree, because I want to be my own boss. I want to open up my own store.
Without a high school education, a student is committing economic suicide. Most of the prisons are filled up with men and women that do not have a high school education. And without a high school education, it clearly limits your possibilities for economic success.
One of the things I want to remind a lot of the students, because I speak in front of groups all the time, and a lot of the kids are angry because they're not getting hired, because the unemployment rate for graduates is like almost 50%. And they demand jobs, and they feel like I'm entitled to a job because I went to college. And I have to remind them that employment is by invitation only. Sorry, people. It's the business owner. If it's got to be about business, if they have the job and you have the skills, then you've made the match. It's not automatic. So I think that needs to be taught. But the other big problem for the Inland Empire, and this is a really scary number, every hour a high school dropout is born in the Inland Empire. One every hour. And if you think about the folks that are incarcerated or on welfare or end up on public roles for the rest of their lives, most of those are high school dropouts. And the cost to a local community of every high school dropout is $260,000. That's the lifetime cost. So multiply that by one every hour and think about how much money our two-county region is wasting. So, and in today's environment, in this economy, we can't afford that. So I think that our number one fix really needs to be, we've got to figure out a way to reduce our high school dropout rate. We need to teach them basic economics. They don't understand. A lot of the kids today, I think social media is great, but a lot of the kids are missing the basic skills, the soft skills, the manners.
Hey babe, looking pretty hot today. Sorry about the glasses. Rough night last night.
Hello, Miss Havisham. Dale Everson. Thank you for taking the time with this interview.
Oh, you're welcome. Please sit down.
They don't want to understand, and I think that's a failure of the education system. And I know that's a cliche because everybody's talking about it, but it really is.
What do you know about our company?
I know you're trying to hire someone?
I understand that you've been fairly aggressive in the international market. I also know that you have long-term stability and a good record of labor relations.
We're not teaching them those things in school, that's where they need to learn, because otherwise they're not taught that, and when they graduate, if they graduate, they're clueless. Even if they get a job or they're applying for a job, they don't know how to interview, and that's a big problem.
You know, that video shows us so much about the way we're not preparing our kids to be ready for the employment market, and it's a free market economy. They have to be prepared to succeed, do they not?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, the problem is that we're not preparing them. And you know, I've shown that video to a few people, and so many of them say, that's my son.
The good interviewer, the bad interviewer.
Yeah, more the bad interviewer.
You know, you told me that you don't think the major issue facing this country is Iran.
No.
You said it's not the environment.
No.
It is
the high school dropout rate. The most important, the most valuable resource we have are our students. They're our children. And we are not preparing them to participate successfully in this economy. And so, you know, the surest path to poverty, we've talked about this, is to drop out of high school. And we're allowing 50% of some of our students in some of our areas to fail. We're not only allowing them to fail in school, we're promising them failure once they leave school. That doesn't work.
So you actually have written a manual that kind of steps people through what they should be teaching at each grade level, the people being educators at each grade level, in terms of inculcating these economic ideas in our kids, teaching them and making it part of their thought process.
Yeah, no, I haven't written it. The State Department of Education has written it.
Okay.
I helped them a little bit, but they did it.
10-member board, was it not?
Yes.
Okay, and you were one of the 10?
Well, that was the National Economic Standards. I was basically an advisor to the State Board of Education.
Okay, so show us what you're going to read.
All right, so here's
a little
the deal.
up.
You know, people will say, well, cost-benefit analysis, you probably ought to have a PhD in finance to understand cost-benefit analysis. Well, I'm going to show you how to do it in 3rd grade and 7th grade and 9th grade. But the point is, it's not that I'm suggesting this ought to be done. The California Department of Education says that cost-benefit analysis should be part of education at every grade level, kindergarten through 12th. Let me quote the standards. If we look at kindergarten through 5th grade, students conduct cost-benefit analyses of historical and current events. So they're supposed to be doing that in kindergarten. And then in 5th grade, I lost it. I marked it very carefully, now I lost it. Students interpret basic indicators of economic performance and conduct cost-benefit analyses of economic and political issues. That's 6th through 8th grade.
Cost-benefit analysis in 6th grade.
It says cost-benefit analysis. If I'm reading this,
I'm just gonna jump you over. What does a cost-benefit analysis mean to somebody in 6th grade?
You want to know?
I do.
All right. Let's talk about cost-benefit analysis in 6th grade. This is what's called the decision-making apron. And on this decision apron, we have absolutely everything that an economist would ever do. Everything that an economist does can be put on this apron. So
Hold
if
it up
we look
just a little for us. There you go.
I'm not tall enough to put it up there.
Sure you are, Jim.
So let's just talk very quickly about what it is, and then I'll show you how you do it in 6th grade.
Now these are actually pockets on an apron.
These are pockets
and
on
you
an
use
apron.
the pockets.
Use the pockets. So if you're, economics, by the way, a definition of economics is using your resources efficiently and effectively to achieve your hopes and your dreams. So get rid of all the technical jargon. That's what it's about. So this apron will help you do that. And rather than going through all the steps, let's just use an example. All right?
I love examples.
I like examples too. You may be familiar with Bella. Can you see Bella or not? I don't know.
Here's what we'll do. Go ahead and lay the apron out.
All right, so here's Bella. And those of you who are familiar with the Twilight series know Bella pretty well. She's a high school student, actually a junior in high school. She was living away for a while. She was born in the state of Washington, moved away with her mom, parents split. She comes back as a junior in high school, and she has decided that she's going to pick out some guy to live happily for the rest of her life with. And she's not a codependent. She's a very strong, powerful woman. And so she's looking for a very strong, powerful guy to live forever with.
And Jim, just real quick, I want to be sure. This is a character from the Twilight series.
That's correct.
So if you in the audience don't know it, your kids will, because this is huge.
Yeah.
So you go into a classroom with this, and the kids know exactly who you're talking about.
Well, the point is we usually break them up into groups of 4, and so we can guarantee one person in that group will know the Twilight series, and most of them will. My college students know the Twilight series. The guys know the Twilight series. That sort of blew my mind. All right, so anyway, we need to get through this thing, right? How long do we have 4 hours for the show? Is that what you said?
No, not quite 4 hours.
All right, so let's
speed us through.
All right, so the economics is about using your resources. Well, what resource do we see here? We see an incredible bundle of human capital. This is a very powerful woman, right? And the goal is to find the guy that she wants to live with forever. All right, so we put her in the goal resource pocket. That's the first step of benefit cost analysis. What do you want to do? And what resources do you have to achieve it? She's narrowed it down to 2 alternatives. One is Edgar.
Hold Edgar up for us.
Oh, here's Edgar.
Now, he has some characteristics.
Well, you're skipping ahead.
All right.
Don't
Go ahead.
Skip ahead here. All right. Then the other alternative is Jacob. All right. So she has 2 alternatives now, Edward and Jacob. Now let's talk about the characteristics. Edward has some serious advantages.
And you have an advantages pocket in your apron.
There's an advantage pocket and a disadvantage pocket for both alternatives. All right, so he's very well educated. He's gone to high school for 83 years, so he knows a lot of high school stuff. He's rich. There's some discussion about whether he's good looking or not. Some of the middle school girls think that he's incredibly handsome, and others think that he's not so handsome. I don't know. He's very pale. You know, he's got no color at all. And he has this teensy-weensy little idiosyncrasy. He's a vampire. And so he's also cold. Scientific research has proven, out of Harvard, I think, that vampires are 2 degrees in body temperature colder than human beings. So, you know, when she's hanging out with him, there's not a lot of warm feelings. So those are the advantages and disadvantages. Now, we take the other guy, Jacob. Jacob is, they've known each other for a long time. When she was growing up in the town, they were good friends. He's a little bit younger than she is. He's very warm. He also has this little idiosyncrasy. He's a shapeshifter who usually turns into a wolf. Same study at Harvard demonstrated that shapeshifters have 2 degrees higher body temperature than normal human beings. So he's very warm. He's got a great tan. And, I mean, they always say it, he's a hunk. All right, so those are the advantages. Disadvantages, he's sort of like a little brother to her. You know, so she's not, she loves him dearly, but she's not sure she loves him in that way. The other major disadvantage is that when he turns into a wolf, it rains a lot in Washington, so he gets wet a lot. So he smells pretty bad when he's wet as a wolf. So now we talked about the advantages and disadvantages of both alternatives. And then we asked the students, okay, which one should she pick? So what are we going to put in this choice pocket? And I don't want to give the story away, so I won't. But I'll tell you.
Alert.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you that. They usually go for Jacob.
All right.
Right? So Jacob goes in the choice pocket. There he is, comfortable and warm in the choice pocket. And then we ask the kids, all right, what did that choice cost? And as soon as you ask what did it cost, people generally tend to think about dollars and cents, but that's not it at all. What opportunity did Bella give up when you made her pick Jacob? You know, and the answer's obvious. She gave up Edward. And so that's the opportunity that she gave up, and we stick that in the opportunity cost pocket. And very quickly, we can take this to Stupid Blaine. Stupid Blaine is he's a junior in high school. He's absolutely convinced that he's going to be a world champion surfer. He's never surfed a day in his life, but he's convinced of that. And he's really, really turned off by high school. He's just burned out. And so he's sitting here with this resource, for what it's worth, and he has a goal to live happily for the rest of his life, and he's looking at two alternatives. One is to graduate from high school, and the other is to drop out of high school. You can't see that, it's black.
It's a spatula.
There you go. Is to drop out of high school. Oh, I forgot to put something else in this pocket. That's the $1 million we've been talking about. That's the difference between the immediate, have we said that?
No, the difference between dropping out of high school and a 4-year degree.
There you go. All right, so we'll stick that in that pocket too, all right? And so I told you his name is Stupid Blaine, right? So which choice does he pick? Which alternative does he pick?
Well, it's a lot of work to get those diplomas.
It is. It really is. Yeah,
and it interferes with surfing time.
It does, although he's never surfed. But it clearly interferes with party time. All right, so I'm going to guess that Stupid Blaine is going to choose the drop out of high school pocket. And what does he give up? He gives up a high school diploma and the $1 million that goes with it. That's the cost of his choice. And so really the message that comes out, and we can do this in 3rd grade with a little girl who wants to have the best birthday party she can have, and she's choosing between a party at home and the Dinosaur Museum. We can do it with history, we can do it with current issues, we can do it with absolutely anything where you want to teach analytical decision making.
And part of what I see you're getting across is this idea that cost is not just how much you outlay in terms of dollars, it's what you give up. If you spend your time doing one activity, you can't spend it doing another.
Often it has nothing to do with money. Let me give you an example. Let's get rid of these guys.
Except I want this.
You want Blaine? Who do you want?
Nope, I want the $1 million.
There you go. Who doesn't?
I'd like the $1 million. There you go.
All right, so I said often it has nothing to do with money, right? You may have either of those Hershey bars.
Hold them
Only
up.
one. One is Hershey's Special Dark. Okay.
Good for the heart.
It is good for the heart. The other is Hershey's Milk Chocolate with Almonds.
Classic.
Oh, I mean, almonds. So, and I'm not going to charge you a penny for these. So, which would you like?
But I can only have one.
You can only have one.
10 years ago, I'd go for the almonds, but now I have to look out for the heart. I'm going for
Special
Dark.
All right. So you chose the heart. Clearly, that Hershey bar was free, right?
It was.
Yeah, well, that's a 4-letter F word we never use. Free. Never use it. Why? Because it wasn't free at all. When you chose the Special Dark, you gave up the almonds. There's nothing free about it. This is the opportunity that you gave up to get that.
Okay.
In 3rd grade.
I'm going to break. We have another email, and that's what we do. We take these emails and calls. Let's go to Mark. He emailed soft skills, ? I have a small business, and no matter how much I might need help, I won't hire a high schooler with nose and lip rings and an entitlement attitude. Why didn't someone teach them the benefit, economics, of dressing to fit the occasion? Thank you, Mark.
We try. I mean, you saw the tape of the job interview, and we say very clearly on there with the kid who comes in with the the wife beater and all that stuff, bad.
I like in the full video how he actually says, math isn't my thing. I'm kind of a big picture guy.
Right. And the point is, there's a lesson plan that goes along with that where the kids actually point out. We ask them very specific questions. Who dresses properly? And so, teachers try very hard to teach those things. But even as parents, we don't always get that message across.
I want to mention real quick first, just a callback. This is the first time I've had a chance to see the $1 million bill made famous by the person who took it to Walmart, bought about $35 worth of stuff, and actually asked for $900,000 in change. It didn't work, and they were arrested for attempting to pass a counterfeit, ultimately, bill.
I don't really understand why, because she was giving the cashier about $100,000 tip. Why didn't they leave it alone?
I think she asked for all of the change, actually.
Oh.
This is what everybody looks for, that $1 million, and this is what they give up. I think it's a good illustration.
You know, I want to comment on that for just a minute. We really try very hard to help kids understand it's not all about the money. We have a series called Money Wise Teen, and in one of the stories, one of the characters goes to, she does all right in high school, decides she's going to go to college, and then her grandma, who's her inspiration of life, dies. And she says, I've got to do something. So she really now bears down. She does well in college. She does great in law school, top of her class. She's out, she's making 80 grand a year, first year out. She hates it. And she's got this huge law school debt. And her dream is to go in business with her mom, who has a flower shop. And so she's trying to figure out how to pay off this college debt, law school debt, so she can go and be happy. And so we try real hard to help kids understand that, you know, yeah, that looks pretty cool, but you have to pick your life.
You know, I'll just call back to your examples. In your examples, you talked about, for instance, the choice that the girl made, that powerful young woman, to be happy with the rest of her life with a mate. It wasn't about money then, it wasn't about money in this particular example, but I'm going to interrupt you and I'm going to go to a call. Richard, thank you for calling in. Richard from San Bernardino, what's your question?
Yes, I'm Richard from San Bernardino. Mr. Charkins, Dr. Charkins was my professor in '84. My question is especially for the teenage kids, what if they can't afford the opportunity cost?
The opportunity cost of what?
I think a lot of these teenagers are thinking cost monetarily. So what if they can't afford the opportunity cost, you know, in a money sense?
Of going to college or of acquiring more skills?
Correct.
Well, you know, when you say can't afford, you obviously went to college, right?
You were my professor. I graduated in '88.
I'm thinking maybe you went to college. There are ways to acquire skills, and college is not the only route. You know, no one is saying that students who don't go to college are failures. What we're saying is that if you drop out of high school, you're pretty much consigning yourself to poverty. But even if you graduate from high school, that's not enough. And so if college is not the route that you take, that's fine. 2/3 of our high school graduates will not finish a 4-year college. We want everybody to be college ready, and we encourage everybody to go to college, but that's not the only path to success. There are plenty of careers where workers in those careers earn a good living and do great things for our society. So, you know, I don't want to discourage anybody from going to college, but we should never say that's the only way to success.
In fact, you made a point of telling me that the purpose of education is not to earn that extra money. The purpose of education is
to achieve your hopes and dreams, to give you the power to control your life when you leave school.
You gave an example even of a drug dealer or a drug kingpin, for instance.
Well, I wasn't suggesting, but the point is...
You weren't suggesting that as an occupation that you're recommending.
No.
But you're saying that whatever your hope and dream is...
You have to have the skills to do that. And so, you know, kids who think there's an easy way to whatever it is that they want to do, they're just going to be disappointed. So I guess what we're saying is we have to show kids reality from kindergarten on, not in the 11th grade, but from kindergarten on. If I were the dictator of education, I would put a list of skills on every bulletin board. These are the skills that are going to be necessary for success in the 21st century global economy.
we mentioned the drug kingpin. I brought that up because I remember reading.
That makes me a little nervous.
No. And I'm not suggesting that you advocated that as a vocation, but I did want to tie it in with a famous book that was published a while ago, Freakonomics.
Right.
New York Times bestseller. I love that book. And in there, it
He's got
profiles.
He may actually have 3.
Yes, Super Freakonomics. I love that one too. The PhD candidate went and entrenched in a drug culture and distribution gang in, I think it was Chicago, for a number of years,
right.
and ultimately pointed out that the person that led the entire gang had a 4-year degree in business, and that everybody else that wanted to take those shortcuts thought they were going to get rich selling drugs on the street corner. And how much did they make?
They actually make below minimum wage.
Below minimum wage.
That's correct. Yeah.
That is a complete lack of education in
economics.
economics.
But let me turn that in a little bit more positive direction. You know, a lot of children think they're going to be firefighters and they're going to be police officers, and they're not going to need an education for that. You know, they couldn't be more wrong. If you want to advance in the fire service, if you want to advance in the police, if you want to achieve the goals that we would hope people would want to achieve, then you have to have an education. You know, and it may be the Sheriff's Academy, and again, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a 4-year degree, but they're not going to make it with just a high school degree.
Tell me what SCAN is.
SCANS is the Secretary's Commission on Achieving Necessary Skills. George Bush Sr. commissioned his Secretary of Labor to come up with a list of skills that were going to help students succeed in this economy. And there are 8 categories. The first one is basic skills: reading, writing, math. You're going to like this one. Speaking, we all like to speak, and listening.
Listening? Who does that?
Successful people do that. You know, and I'm not going to go through the whole list, but the point, one of the really interesting ones is social relationships, to get along with people who don't look like you, people from other backgrounds. I had a student one time who told me, you know, as I was giving this lecture, he said, "Well, Dr. Charkins, that's all fine, but I just want to tell you I am never, ever going to work for a woman."
Really?
Yeah, and I tell him, "Well, you got that half right."
That's a great thing to close on. Jim, I want to tell you how much I appreciate your being here. That's all the time we have. I'd like to thank our guest, Jim Charkins, for joining us. And thank you for watching. Next week at this time, please tune in because we have a special episode of Plugged Inland. It's actually the teacher town hall that was taped at the Los Angeles Grammy Museum's auditorium. I was there, Melinda Gates was there, and educators of all levels gave voice to what's going right and what's not going right in American K-12 education. I'm Roger Bowman. Thank you for tuning in to Plugged Inland.